I said the dispensation of innocence. Yeah. Today we want to look at dispensation of conscience. Right, one of the primary verse that we are going to look at for a dispensation of conscience is Genesis chapter 6. Let's look at Genesis chapter 6, verse 3. Can one of you please read?
Six verse 3.
Yes.
Then the Lord said, My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortals. Their days will be 120 years.
Okay. All right. So Genesis chapter 6, verse 3 informs us that God's means of governing people during this dispensation was by contending in man, right? I think NIV and NASB use the word striving in man. That is the word. Striving in man. There are some time maybe ESV or other translation would remain or abide. I think that is because of misunderstanding of a textual problem. So yes, NASB, I look at NASB says, my spirit shall not strive with man forever. Yes. So it would seem that this is a reference to human conscience working internally to restrain man. Contending in man is taken this way. What God is working through the conscience of human beings to rule them. To rule them. So this is something that we get from this verse. Okay. Now let's look at duration of the dispensation. Well, man no doubt had a conscience in the garden. Yes. Yes. It's if you ask, hey, you're saying this is the dispensation of conscience. So do you say that Adam did not have conscience and only later had? No, that's not the way we are saying. Adam had conscience, every human beings have, but conscience was not the primary means of accountability. No. What was the accountability? God was walking every day in the evening. God was coming down, walking with Adam, right? So God ceased this conversing with man on a daily basis by sin. When man sinned, that is, remember, one fine day when God came, Adam is not there, Adam is hiding, right? One day. So that means, why did God come? That is a way that Adam had the accountability, right? His expression of his faith in the revelation of God was going on, right? That's what we need to understand in the beginning. But right now, one day, God, when God comes, Adam doesn't appear. Adam is hiding because of sin. All right, because of sin. Now, and that means the accountability method is being changed. So what happened? Conscience became the primary administrative feature of the new dispensation. So we know this because Genesis 6:3 states that God would discontinue the use of conscience as the primary means of administration after 120 years passed, or at the time of Noahic flood, right? So even that means what? God's administration is going to be changed, because right now we see after this God is establishing human government. The way that God is going to rule is not by contending in man, but other means. So that tells us that God, after this sin, God was ruling men through man's spirit. God is ruling them by contending, striving in them, right? So God was restraining them through the inner being. But now you are reading after chapter 6, then you will go and you will see the restraining coming in terms of capital punishment, not through the inner strife. God is establishing external rules to rule the people now. So you are seeing differences which are very important. So that is the reason we use the word conscience or a dispensation of conscience.
So one clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Are we to understand that initially it was in a face-to-face manner that he used to walk with them and sustain that relationship, and
Yes.
thereafter through the conscience, and thereafter through the government?
It's not the relationship that we are talking about. It's talking about the accountability and God's rules, right? Like the accountability and the rules. So how God ruled? Yes, we know that in the beginning there was not much issue because there was no sin, and the accountability was very clear that God was walking with Adam every day on a daily basis. And that means we need to at least understand that they were communicating, talking, and enjoying the presence of God, right? Adam was really enjoying God as it was happening. And that means they're speaking, and Adam expressed his faith in the revelation of God, because Adam exactly obeyed what God said until that sin came, right? That is the time God stopped walking with Adam anymore. So that means God's direct control is withdrawn, right? God was control, that is withdrawn now. Now, what you read in verse 6:3, that he's going to stop one system of striving, controlling men, that is through the inner being, the conscience. He's going to stop, because the new dispensation is coming, or the new type of ruling is coming, new type of accountability is coming, new type of ruling is coming. That is a human kind of human government. God is going to give a collective authority. God is going to enlist the authority to a collective people now. Collective people. Because of remember, capital punishment. If God says, whoever sheds the blood of one person, his blood has to be shed. Who will do that? Who will do that? There is going to be a collective effort, right? So that is the reason we call it as a human government. And so the idea for us would be is to understand that means before this human government comes, God was ruling, administrating through the inner beings of men, right? Basically, we say through the conscience, all right? Even though you don't, even though you don't see the word conscience, of course, we don't need to, but the idea is that God is ruling through their inner being. So we get that idea from chapter 6, verse 3. All right, that's what we see. Okay, so we saw the idea. The primary means of accountability was not the conscience in the Garden of Eden, but now it is through the conscience, the accountability happened. All right. New revelation. What was the new revelation we see in the dispensation of conscience? All right. What is the new revelation? Number one is Genesis 3:15. Genesis 3:15. What is that? We know the verse, right? Let's look at that verse. Maybe it would give us some clarity here of what we are talking about. Genesis 3:15 is where God is judging Satan. This is what we read. And I will put enmity between you and the woman. All right, you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise you on the head, and you shall bruise him on the heel. Okay, so what are we to understand? So this is a revelation. You know, remember yesterday we looked at this. It's also called as proto-evangelium. Proto-evangelium, the first gospel, right? So what is the demise? Okay, the promise of the demise of the serpent at the hand of the redemptive seed in Genesis 3:15. So there is going to be a redemptive seed coming, right? It is promised here, and the demise of the serpent is going to be happening by the seed. This applied for Adam and his descendants, the content of the saving faith for this dispensation. Yes, Adam is someone who is going from one dispensation to the other dispensation, because from a sinless time to a sinful time, right? And therefore Adam needs the promise of redemption. Promise of redemption. That promise of redemption happens in 3:15, right? So what is the curses against serpent and mankind? This is what we read. Enmity between Satan and Eve. Enmity between, okay, so that verse says, I will put enmity between you and the woman. Who is the you? Satan. Because this judgment is, right, verse 14 clearly says, the Lord God said to the serpent. So between you Satan, and woman, right? Eve. Who is the woman? Eve. Then it says, enmity between, the next verse, says, between your seed and her seed, right? Between the seed of Satan and between the seed of woman, right? Between the seed of Satan and between the seed of woman. So that is what? What is the seed of Satan? What is the seed of Satan? Unbelievers, right? Unbelievers are the seed of Satan. And what is the then seed of the woman? Definitely it has to be believers, right? Believers. And the promise is that Jesus is going to come from the seed of the woman. Seed of the woman. Okay. For women, so in the judgment we see for women, pain and discomfort associated with the reproductive process and a persistent dissatisfaction with the male headship is going to happen, right? That's what would happen for women. This is part of the curse, which would often prove overbearing and even abusive sometimes. Yes, it can happen. And for men, stubborn resistance from all that God had given him to govern, both in the realm of his family and the realm of his work. Yes, man is going to feel resistance, right? Within from family and from his work. So this is going to happen. Okay, so that's what we read in verse 15. God also was active in supplying other direct revelation in the absence of completed canon. There was no Bible written like that, so God was supplying revelation to Cain, Enoch, and Noah, and others as well in this dispensation. Sometime speaking with the people, and in case of Cain, supplying what? A protective sign. Remember that one. What was that? This is usually has become an issue for some people, right? What was the sign that God gave to Cain? Cain killed Abel. Cain killed an Abel, and finally, there was issue happens, and
Mark.
yes,
Mark.
yeah. What is that? What is that? This sign, Mark where?
On his forehead.
Forehead.
Yeah. What do you read? Okay, Genesis 4:15. What it says? Let me see. Is it in the forehead or in the?
But the Lord said to him, Not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over. Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him.
Do you read that where the sign is put, mark is put?
On Cain.
Where?
It doesn't say where.
On him.
It does not say.
Yeah, but the preachers would say because the preachers wants to say somewhere. So better is if you have, I don't know, maybe something like a bulb, something that there are preachers who would say that he has got a bulge here. Cain had a bulge here on the forehead because of or I don't know. Yeah, mark on his body for his one. Yes, there is a sign clearly, but where is it? We don't know. That is overreading, right? Overreading, because because we want to say maybe whenever sign comes, because in Revelation, what? Either for the Antichrist, what they do, you need to have the number. Where the number? Right? Where the number? Where the number? If in Revelation chapter 13, if you read that those who worship Antichrist will receive a number. Number where? Nobody wants to say. Okay, hand or forehead, right? Hand or forehead. Maybe I think I was preaching on Revelation. Maybe I think I pointed out maybe it is usually done on the forehead, done on the hand, but those who don't have hands can have their number on the forehead as well. But anyway, maybe by looking at Revelation, people wanted to suggest that Cain had a number on the forehead, but does it say, right? Yes, but mark on his body for his physical protection. This does not, however, seems to be a normal thing, right? A normal thing. The normal means of administration was simply internal during this time.
So can we say that this mark is not a physical mark that is referred to? It's some kind of a mark to identify.
Yeah, how that can happen? All right, it says, and the Lord appointed a sign for Cain, lest anyone finding him should slay him. A sign for, the mark or sign. In NASB, I read a sign. Maybe I can show you how this verse is being translated.
Because unless everyone knows what is that mark,
yeah,
where is that mark,
yeah, that is, which I think I have said several times, and that I don't know whether it is clearly a mark on his body, even, right? Yes, let me see. Yeah, it said, and he placed a mark on Cain It's okay. Christian Standard Bible, Mark on, and ESV say Mark on Cain, and KJV says Mark upon Cain, NASB says a sign for Cain, and NIV say a mark on Cain, and yes, a poke. Okay, one of the literal translation, young literal translation would say, the Lord set to Cain a token that none finding him desolate. So kind of a token. So there are varieties of ways that verse is translated: mark, a sign, or a token. At least I can find 3 various ways that word is translated. So it is murky. It's not that clear here. What is it a mark, a sign? Because a mark can be different from a sign. So, I don't know. I don't know what exactly it is. Is it something marked on his body? If that is marked on his body, that means yes, it is possible, because God was ruling through the conscience. Maybe God is speaking to people, whenever they see Cain, that they're supposed not to kill him, because he is carrying a huge burden, right? They're supposed not to kill him. So maybe that, we don't know exactly. Bible doesn't say exactly. So it's better not to say what it exactly is. So that's what I would say. All right. Okay, so we are looking at this dispensation. We saw the term, duration of the dispensation, and revelation we saw. Now, new administration. So how does God administer, rule? We saw that it is through the human conscience, so the inner being of man. And that's the reason we have the word, you use the word dispensation of conscience. New responsibilities, what is that? Faith in the promise of God. I am saying in all the dispensation, faith was key. Faith was key. All the dispensations. Adam expressed faith by naming his wife Eve, mother of all living, apparently a reference to her role in producing the seed. Yeah, mother of all living, because she is going to be the one through whom seed is going to come, right? So that might be the reason why she has that name, actually. And chapter 4 verse 1, I want us to look at chapter 4 verse 1. Chapter 4 verse 1.
Adam made love to his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man."
Okay, so let me ask you, what did you read in the beginning, Adam?
Adam made love to his
Okay,
wife.
made love. Okay, made love. Yeah. You know that it's simply the Hebrew word will be Adam knew his wife. Yada. Adam knew his wife. And the translation is that Adam had physical relation or sexual relationship with Eve. The idea is that it's talking about that close relationship, right? So what do you read? The last portion of that word is that I have gotten a man with the help of the Lord, right? It's quite interesting. I looked at that verse carefully. It looked like I have got a male child. I have got a male child. I have got a male child. And it says the Lord. Or it says Yahweh, yes. yet Yahweh, the Lord, I have gotten a male child or a male. Oh, yes, even would we say by looking at Hebrew, yeah. So most of the translators would translate, they have gotten a male child, the Lord. What does that verse actually would suggest, right? So most here I have given this that is from with the yes NASB. Eve expressed faith in her statement in chapter 4 verse 1, translated this translation is, it's really different. People translate various ways. I have got a male child with the help of the Lord. You don't have that word help there actually. Or I have got a male child, the Lord. I have got a male child, the Lord. What I'm trying to say, did Eve think that her son is the deliverer? Perhaps, yes. So perhaps a misunderstanding that her first child will be the promised seed, the Lord, Yahweh. Yes, I think I am looking at something like that. It is because chapter 3 verse 15, the seed is mentioned, and she believes that one. And verse 4, chapter 4 verse 1, she seems to suggest, I have got a male child, the Lord. If you take, and that's what Hebrew says, if you take that face value, maybe it is possible that Eve thought that the first son, that is Cain, is going to be the promised seed. Okay. So that is something that I wanted to say from verse 1 of chapter 4. And another thing, in this dispensation, Abel's sacrifice was accepted because it was offered up in faith. Okay, yes, I have removed a paragraph from there from your notes, maybe because I have a rethinking on what is written, because that was written a little earlier. I have a rethinking, so that's the reason I've just removed it here. Yes, why Abel's sacrifice was accepted? Right, it's a big question for many people. Why? Okay, one thing is very clear. Why Abel's sacrifice was accepted, right? It is, the number one reason is said in Hebrews chapter 11. Let's look at Hebrews chapter 11. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 4, right? Yeah. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 4. Can one of us read?
By faith, Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. By faith, he was commended as righteous, and God spoke well of his offering. And by faith,
that's enough.
he still speaks.
Yes. Yeah. By faith, Abel offered to God a better sacrifice than Cain. Okay, by faith. Why Abel's sacrifice was accepted? Right? Why? It is simply because he offered by faith. Right? By faith. Which is a suggestion that Cain's offering was not by faith. Not by faith. So if you look at these two offerings, it is mainly, it is not in the material that they brought. It is in the faith that they have. But the question again, what did they have faith in? What did they believe? Yes, if you say, that would be a difficult question to answer. What did what did Abel believe? On which Abel expressed his faith? Definitely it is some kind of revelation, right? So that would be a question difficult to answer. So I have taken out my explanation from the notes that I've sent. Is something like what was that? A blood. Yes, was a blood sacrifice necessary feature of this economy? Maybe I have taken because I have a different view on that. Because I looked at some looking at the Hebrew language, especially. Okay, let's look at chapter 4. Let's look at chapter 4 now. I want us to see that one. Genesis chapter 4. Okay. Let's read verse 2, 3, 4. Okay. Let's read verse. Okay. I'm going to read verse 7. Okay. Let's read from verse 2 to 7. Can one of you?
Again, she gave birth to his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of flocks, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. So it came about in the course of time that Cain brought an offering to the Lord of the fruit of the ground. Abel on his part also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of their fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Abel and for his offering. But for Cain and for his offering he had no regard. So Cain became very angry, and his countenance fell. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? And why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will not your countenance be lifted up? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door, and its desire is for you, but you must master it."
Yeah. You might have heard this verse 7. Maybe most of the people preach. Recently I had I was doing some research on this passage, maybe a year ago. So somehow I forgot to change in the notes. So maybe sometime later I might send you. So okay, Cain's sacrifice was not accepted. Verse 5 says, "For Cain and his offering I had no regard." So Cain became very angry and his countenance fell because God did not accept. Now God is speaking to Cain, verse 6. All right. Okay. Verse 6. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? And why has your countenance fallen?" Why are your countenance fallen? Then verse 7 says, "If you do well, will not your countenance be lifted up?" So some problem is there. Hey, God is speaking to Cain. If you have done well, will not your countenance be lifted up? But if you do not well, if you do not do well, then it's not going to happen. That is what it understanding. Then look at the next word. Sin is crouching. Yeah. Sin is crouching at the door. What does that mean? Sin is crouching at the door. What does that mean? And if you look at the Hebrew word, that's where maybe I have a mistake happen. The Hebrew word is actually suggesting a sin offering. Sin offering is crouching at the door. Sin offering is crouching at the door. Because look at the word crouching at the door. It's not sin is entering. That's not sin offering. Looks like a lamb. It's crouching at the door. And God is saying, and its desire is for you, and you must master it. The idea is that I think God was suggesting Cain to do a sin offering. Sin offering. All right. So, yes. Now, let's look at this way. Why God accepted Abel's offering? Yes, Abel offered in faith. What was the faith that Abel had? Perhaps God might have revealed to them the way that you need to come to me is through an animal offering. Perhaps. And maybe Cain did not understand that one. And God is speaking again to Cain. So that, God can accept the sacrifice. So that would be my take on that passage now. Right. So that means that there should be a little difference from the notes, what you see. So I am looking at, yes, there is a suggestion of sin offering to Cain. That God is asking again Cain to bring an offering so that God can accept a Cain. Maybe I'm looking at it is from God's part. God is still merciful to Cain, more merciful to Cain, so that God can bring him back. But he did not, because he was an unbeliever. I mean, his heart was hardened. He doesn't want it to come. He doesn't want it to come. That's what I see there. Okay. All right. So one thing is very certain. Yes, what happened with Abel's offering? It offered in faith. All right, offered in faith. That is absolutely sure. Cain did not believe. But what did Abel believed? Okay, he believed. He offered in faith. His faith was on what? There should have been some kind of revelation that God had given, which is not said in the Bible. Now, if you say, yes, God already killed an animal to cover up Adam and Eve, I don't think that was because covering Adam and Eve with the skin is not, I don't think it was something like of a sacrifice. I don't think that was a sacrifice. I don't see it as a sacrifice. Maybe many theologians would look at that as a sacrifice. What? God killed animal to cover Adam and Eve, to dress them up, right? And they would see them as a revelation of God to cover their sin. And I don't see, because the text clearly says that it is to cover their physical body, and doesn't say anything else other than that. But what I'm seeing, maybe through their conscience, God has been speaking to them. The acceptable way to come to me is that you offer sacrifice, right? That's the way I see it. I mean, I'm saying good people can differ, theology can differ, but I'm saying, how do I look at, right? Continuing principles. Yes. So we looked at this dispensation of innocence, but what other things continues? Human conscience remains intact, though wrapped up by the effect of depravity, right? Still, do we have conscience? Yes, we do. But it is depraved conscience, right? That means don't now depend on your conscience. Right? Yeah. Don't say everything what your conscience says is right, because conscience can be trained, conscience can be informed. For example, someone who eats meat or who does not eat meat, in their conscience, they absolutely believe that it is wrong, right? Their conscience witnessed them, it is wrong because it has been filled, right? So conscience can be filled, trained. Yes, it depends upon where do you grow up, right? You grow up in a place where you don't like to eat snake, right? You see as very bad word, you don't want, and you don't like to eat, but you grow up in a place where you want to eat, where people all the time they eat whatever you get, they don't have any problem, their conscience is all fine. So now conscience is not the arbitrator of right and wrong. It depends upon how you train because of sin. But it ceases, what is the difference, however, to be the sole or primary means of divine administration after this dispensation ends. So no more God is ruling, administrating through conscience. Another one, the need for the faith is explicitly incorporated into all dispensations after this point. Yes, faith is important. And that's the reason you have Hebrews chapter 11, a chapter of faith, right? By faith, it begins with all these peoples, right? So they had to exercise. All right, that is what dispensation of innocence. Conscience. Any questions?
Sir,
Yes.
that means when did the blood sacrifice started? Is it from the Cain or
Sorry, Thundering. I think you were. Did not hear well. It was breaking. Your voice was breaking.
okay? My question is, when did the blood sacrifice started? Is it from the Cain or from the others?
Abel is the first one sacrificed animal. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Not even Adam. Bible doesn't say that Adam was the first, but it looks like it's Abel. Yes. That's a good question. Okay. Nothing. So we'll stop here for